Since the tower clock is now working again, and it just struck 5:30, we'll begin our meeting with a roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton.
Here.
Commissioner Barwick.
Here.
Commissioner Webb.
Here.
Commissioner Steckland.
Here.
Mayor Absher.
Here. Chief, you want to lead us in the pledge?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It brings us to item 3 on the agenda, which is our public comments and audience to visitors. I only see one visitor, I think, in the back row. Do you wish to speak to the council tonight?
No, I'm just here having fun and government stuff.
Okay. It'll be fine. So I assume neither of you guys want to speak to the council
I think Tim did.
under this item? All right. Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Item 4, we only got A and B tonight. Anybody from the council want either of these items removed and voted upon separately? Anybody from the audience want item A or B voted upon separately? Okay, hearing no requests, I would take a motion to pass the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to pass consent agenda as presented. I'll second that.
Any discussion on either items or correction to the minutes? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton.
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick.
Yay.
Commissioner Webb.
Yay.
Commissioner Steckland.
Yay.
Mayor Absher.
Yay. Okay, probably the most meaty item on the agenda is one we tabled last time, and it continued to be revised as we tried to make this simpler rather than more complicated. And this has to do with the ordinance that we need to consider basically regulating what we're going to define in the ordinance as billboards. So I'll just give it to Wendy and let her walk us through this and the public through this as to her thoughts, and you guys can weigh in.
Well, as you guys might recall, our current ordinance, which is called outdoor advertising, is basically a page long and really has no regulation in it whatsoever. It came to our attention about a year ago that we needed to change that. There was kind of a large number of some newer signs that came to town. We realized we probably need to put some regulation in place. As you know, there's been a moratorium on certain types of signs for the last year in preparation of trying to come up with a revised ordinance concerning signs in the city of Marion. There's been, I don't even know how many drafts. At this point, we've passed back and forth and discussed, and things have been taken out, put back in, taken out again. So this is kind of the final draft that we've come up with. We've had to, there's a fine line between making it constitutionally legal and yet trying to achieve all the goals that I believe you guys are wanting to achieve. So that's what this is. This doesn't just regulate billboards. This is all signs in the city of Marion. So this is for all signs. But it does have a particular definition of billboard, which is any temporary or permanent sign or sign face that is used for placing messages or advertisements in exchange for money or other consideration. And what this current version does is it prohibits any further signs of that nature. So any current sign that's already up is grandfathered in, but would be considered now be considered a non-conforming sign and still subject to certain maintenance requirements, things like that. But there would be no new billboards allowed, essentially with the way that we've drafted it. There's also some regulations on illumination. Some of the signs that are digital nowadays, some of those lights can get pretty bright. So we wanted to make sure we weren't having anything that interfered with vehicular and pedestrian traffic. So we did add some things in on the illumination. There's obviously some exemptions in here. There's the permit process is still a part of the process. They still have to apply for a permit. There is an appeal process. Essentially, if the codes office denies a permit, they can file an appeal, which basically brings it before you. So if someone is denied a permit, they can file an appeal, and we're gonna try to put together a form to help them do that, that would provide you guys the information necessary to help aid in your decision. And so that would come before you guys at one of your next council meetings if somebody wanted to appeal a denial of a permit. We do have some size and height requirements in here, particularly, so signs prohibited, any sign larger than 25 square feet on property that is vacant, used for residential or agricultural purposes, or in a residential zoning district. Any sign extending 8 feet or higher on property in those same districts. And then signs larger than 300 square feet in commercial or industrial purposes. And then we've also got any sign that extends 30 feet or higher on property that is used for commercial or industrial purposes, except signs located along a major roadway as we have defined it. So we have defined major roadway as only New Route 13 between 37 and 148. So signs on New Route 13 within that location parameter can be higher than 30 feet, but others of the city it would not be. So that's some of the location and height restrictions we've put in there. There are some exemptions, obviously, small signs like your political signs, your yard sale signs, real estate signs, things like that would all be included in some of the sizes that are exempt under the exempt sign provision.
So Wendy, just
Yes.
to clarify and make sure it's clear in my mind, the on-premise advertising sign that advertises McDonald's, Burger King, whatever type of restaurant, that can still happen as long as it meets the criteria that we've outlined in B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
So it can be not any larger than 25 square feet.
That's for residential. If you're referring
I'm
to
sorry,
it,
you're right, yeah.
that would be 300 square feet for commercial.
Anything larger than 300, so they can be under 300 and still advertise their business, but with no other advertisement that they get paid for.
Correct.
Okay. Just
At
wanted to make sure that I was clear on that.
At 300 square feet, trying to get in everybody's mind, the signs that are on South Court Street that have just went up, one down the corner of Boynton and South Court, and then the other one is South Court across from Waltz area, there on the corner of that Chestnut Street, I believe. Are those approximately 300 square feet signs?
I'm not 100%. I would have to look at the applications that they turned in to the codes office. I know that there are a few.
I don't think they're 30. I think they're 20.
I think there's a few permits
30 at least.
outstanding. I know that the recent ones they've applied for are larger than that. There's a few that have been applied for that were denied because of our moratorium. In those particular cases, the sizes that were requested were 14 by 48 for, I think it was like 672 square feet.
In my mind, in an area like South Court Street where they're really close to the road, those signs are way too big. I don't know exactly how many square feet those are, but I just can't imagine several of those being down on South Court Street.
Or any other street for that matter.
Huh?
Or any other street for that matter. I
Yeah.
think they're extraordinarily out of place, and I don't like anything about them.
So I don't know that
That's my personal.
that I would necessarily agree with allowing a 300 square foot sign on areas off of the main highway that we're talking, Route 13.
Would be residential.
Wouldn't
South
that be,
Florida.
wouldn't that be a case by case though, depending on where it was at?
The one at Legion's, for reference, is 378 square feet, which is, I think, about the biggest one in town on surface area wise at this point,
Yeah.
of the new signs.
Do you know what the ones on Court Street are? They seem like they're taller than the one at Legion's.
310 Court,
Yes, that would be,
310 South Court is 200.
it's only 200. Can you imagine a 300-foot sign there?
No. Wendy, I got a question about a logo sign.
Okay.
I'm just thinking, I don't know how big it is, but I remember when it went up, Cracker Barrel sign on the
Mhm.
ground was massive. But up there, it's not big.
Right.
Will this impede a business from their logo sign, from their logo?
No, but they would still be restricted to that 300 square feet. If it's a commercial industrial property, they would be restricted to that 300 square feet
That's,
unless they're on New Route 13 between 37 and 148. Well, no, they would still be restricted to that either way. That's only on the height, sorry.
yeah, I would have a problem with that because, especially, I'm just thinking of a big box retailer, somebody like that, that's gonna locate out there. Those things are huge.
It makes a big difference too, if you're putting this sign on a 100 by 150 by 150 lot, like what we have on the smaller streets, versus you're putting it on 20 acres, 5 acres, whatever. And then again, the height, and well off the roadway, doesn't seem like, that sign does not seem intrusive as much as the ones that you see coming up South Court Street, and those are only 200 square feet.
I'm just thinking of it, some of these companies sign, not the sign like we're thinking billboard sign, but just their name. Like a McDonald's logo, McDonald's sign. Those things are massive. I'm thinking if a big company comes in here, they're gonna have a big something. It's just part of their Olive Garden. Now, I don't think theirs are quite as big, but somebody like that.
Their sign will actually be just barely under 300 square feet.
Okay. And see, I consider their sign kind of on the smaller side of what I can remember the sign being.
Well,
Is it something we can amend later? If we need
Sure.
to?
Oh, yeah.
and there's no reason that,
On a case-to-case, maybe, or not?
Well, I mean,
I think that's the appeal
yeah.
process. I think if somebody wants to put a different sign, and to his point,
Yeah.
to John's point, if it's, I can't think of a good example, but if it's on 50 acres, so I don't know what that would be,
Yeah.
but 50 acres or something, that's, he's got a good point. It's a very different dynamic than
Right.
something that's on South Court Street. That being said, I had the opportunity to go through a couple of towns, actually over the weekend, that I'm familiar with, and was looking through this lens there. There are very few towns that we would benchmark, that we would want to emulate, that have signs larger than 300 square feet, I promise you, along their main thoroughfares. There are some, but it's more rare than I really even anticipated, just looking, that's just through that one lens of one weekend looking and paying attention to that. But, we can do whatever you guys want to do. We can change these numbers, or we can leave it. The problem, and I think I went through this last time, is we did benchmark a couple of different towns. O'Fallon was one of them, and I think there were 4 or 5 that ultimately we looked at their zone, or their sign regulations. It went from anywhere from 11 pages of basically if-then-else statements. If this is true, then do this. If that's not true, then do this. And some decision tree, there was one that was 38 pages long. It seems way overkill to start there, to where anybody can't really interpret. And I personally feel like this is a good place to start. Now, the question you've got to ask is, when you talk about Court Street, there's not gonna be, if we pass this ordinance as it stands, there wouldn't be that sign again there, because that is a billboard. It's not a business advertising their place of business. So it'd be interesting, for example, you go in North Court and think of McDonald's or something like that, I wonder how big their golden arches and everything are there, that's where that would apply. Then you're not gonna get another billboard of that dimension, but we can certainly change the dimensions of it if you want, or,
My only fear would be, and I understand the billboard definition that we're using is not going to show up there, that's gonna be on Route 13. We've got Carbon Street, we've got Main
No.
Street.
The billboard
billboard
definition
is
we're using, there will be no
townwide.
more billboards anywhere.
it's
We're
townwide.
done with those, okay.
Yes.
But on Court Street, Main Street, Carbon Street, you know, the main thoroughfares, I still think a 300 square foot sign, even though it wouldn't be a sign that is being used for rent.
So you
I
think
can't
if
think of an
300
example.
square feet is still too large for just a normal business sign,
Yeah.
and in
Off
certain
of-
locations?
Off of the main off of Route 13.
Well, we could always say something like, any sign larger than 300 square feet, on property that's used for commercial or industrial purposes on the main road.
You're
Which
talking
would
about
be,
on the major road that we've
is
defined?
that our definition, on the major road, or more than blank square feet elsewhere? Whatever that number is that you're more comfortable with.
Maybe, just throw an example, 150, 200 feet on non-Route 13, whatever.
Not designated. Major road,
And then
that's
it
the
can always
definition.
be, if they apply, and let's say it's a McDonald's or some business, and again, it depends on how big of property they've got, and, you know, they can always appeal that, and it can come back, and at that point, could we make an exception if, let's say we put it at 150 feet, and they wanted to put a 200-foot sign, and it's gonna be on, say, Main Street, but it's gonna be in a position where it's not gonna be right out on the road and, you know, in your face, so to speak. Is that something that we could,
We could
allow-
create an avenue for variances and things like that through the appeal process. So when a permit is denied and they appeal to the council, those would be certain factors that the council could take into consideration in whether to grant or deny the variance from what's stated in the code.
I don't want us to do anything that's going to prohibit anyone from wanting to bring a business here. But a 300 square foot sign, if those that are already on Court Street, even though we can't have any more billboards like that, but if someone buys a property just north of Boynton Street and puts something in, do we really even want them to put a 300 square foot sign up? You know, I mean, that's larger than the one there at Boynton Street already. And that area, I think it needs to be quite a bit smaller. And still be large enough to,
My suggestion would be on section 5, signs prohibited. Item D, to change it to read, any sign larger than 300 square feet on a property that is used for commercial or industrial purposes along the major road, which is a defined term in this ordinance, or larger than blank, whatever square feet. If you said 10 by 15 or whatever, you know, or 150, that wouldn't necessarily have to be 10 by 15, but 150, I
Right.
think is what you said. So using that as an example, larger than 150 square feet elsewhere.
that would be perfect.
Is that language?
That's possible. I think that may conflict with what John was referring to for areas like where Cracker Barrel is though. Because then, like specifically that area where Cracker Barrel would then be limited to the 150. Because they would not be along
Which we
what we've
wouldn't require
defined.
them to change, only new businesses.
Right, it would only be new
And that would-
businesses, but
that
I'm
would
just,
be covered in the
I'm just saying
appeal.
in that particular area, that would then limit them to this new number we're creating.
That circumstance, though, they would appeal and say, well, we're wanting to put our sign up, you know, we've got how much land? FedEx is a good example. They're on Main Street, or on West Main Street, but they're sitting back far enough off the road. I don't know how many acres they've got, 20 acres. A 300 square foot sign would probably look lost out on their property. You know, say they wanted to put one up larger. I mean, I think there could be exceptions for that depending upon, you know, what they're wanting to do with it.
Well, and if your businesses that are trying to pull from the interstate, they want bigger and taller.
And if they've got enough property, I'm fine with that. Put that on a 150-foot square lot.
It seemed like when Pilot was coming to town, there was a big issue on their side, and the state was regulating being too close to the interstate, if I remember right. 'Cause they had Glenn, then they put balloons up in the air to make sure they could see from each direction.
Yeah,
It was a big ordeal, and
that
it was rumored they was even gonna mothball the project if they couldn't get the right sign out there.
that was Love's, and they put floated balloons up, and they ran traffic over there, and good visibility, and they went high enough so they could see up and down the interstate and block out the trees or anything.
Or maybe put that to 200.
I'm just glad they didn't ask us to move the water tower.
Yeah.
The sign's up 190 feet.
Well, as much as I hate the prospect of having a bunch of exceptions have to come before the full council, I think at this stage, that's the balance we have to, that's the trade-off, is that either we engineer a 38-page ordinance of all the ifs, ands, and buts that we can possibly think of, and then you'll still not think of some. And that's the problem when we go to absolute zero regulation to, you know, trying to, I hate to go from one extreme to the other extreme. And so this, to me, is somewhere in the middle, and I don't know what the right square footage is, and this, that, and the other. I agree with what you're saying.
I don't
It
either.
would seem out of
I think
place.
the best thing to do the ask for the variances or things like that as they come up, and then as long as we stay consistent in those variance things, because each one could be different, like you said, you could approve a 150-foot sign in one place, and 6 blocks up, that sign doesn't make sense, even though it's on the same street, because of what's around it, so, you know, it's just gotta be consistent.
I think the better thing, if that's what we wanna do, is maybe to just leave everything as it's written. But in the appeal section, add some additional language in there that when, if a permit is denied, an appeal is brought before the council, and just kinda list out some of the factors that the council can take into consideration, such as the size of the property, the amount of acreage that the property is on, the size of the sign they're requesting, the type of business, where it's located in town, on what type of street, you know, those types of things. We could actually list some of those out in the ordinance.
So you're saying leave it as we've currently got it?
That's what I would suggest.
If someone comes in though, after we pass this next week and wants to put a 300 square foot sign up on their property, let's say on South Court Street, then we'd be locked into allowing that, correct?
This would allow it, yes.
Okay,
So-
we change item D the way I suggested?
We can, yeah, but you gotta figure out what your other number is going to be.
And I would suggest giving the code administrator some leverage there, given the area, to approve something over whatever square footage you come up with, rather than having to go to the council consistently. So if it was along 17th Street, for example, say it was 17th Street Bar and Grill, say they decided they wanted to put up a 400 square foot sign to advertise to the interstate, under this language that you're discussing now, they wouldn't be able to do so, but that's a commercial area. They're not impeding on anyone's residence at all. So, should you give maybe the code administrator some leeway to make those variance calls, or just go straight to the appeal process?
I personally feel like it just needs to be appealed. We set it and let them appeal it, and then we can change this if it becomes onerous for us and a time hog or something like that. The problem I see in that circumstance, I understand exactly what you're saying. Under normal circumstances, I agree with what you're saying, give it some sort of and that, you find that elsewhere in our code.
Yes.
Where the code enforcement has a 10% variance, a 5% variance on setbacks and things like this. The problem I see with the specific example you just gave is somebody going on 17th Street and putting a huge, not only sign face of it, but tall too, as a workaround to advertise on 13 or 57. Because they can't put that sign on the major road because we've listed it the way that we've listed it. I think there's I hate looking at it that way, but if you don't draw lines in the sand, just like our code was exploited in this latest round of these signs, they will find a way to exploit it. They all but warned us they would find a way to exploit it after they exploited it. But, so, it's kind of a double-edged sword, I think. I mean, the one hand being, yes, maybe this is way too limiting in its brevity versus going 38 pages, and we could sit here and come up with, example after example, what about this, what about that?
We can come up with a height and size restriction for every road in Marion if you guys want.
Yeah, and I just,
I mean,
you know,
that's
How about we do your
possible.
language and plug in 200 square feet for anything off of Route 13.
For anything
Let's kind of-
elsewhere,
What, I'm sorry,
for all other signs elsewhere, the 200?
200 square foot
instead of
maximum.
150?
What's that?
I thought 200 instead of 150 is what.
I would be okay with the 200. I mean, I don't really know.
So this is my suggestion, look, everybody look on, this is on the second page, item, or paragraph 5, under signs prohibited, the following signs shall be prohibited, this is item D. This is my suggested language, everything that's there, which reads, any sign larger than 300 square feet on a property that's used for commercial or industrial purposes, and then this is what we're adding, along the major road, comma, or larger than 200 square feet elsewhere. Is that sufficient for what we've discussed language-wise?
I think so, yeah.
So you should start, yeah.
Okay, so that prohibits, not only are we prohibiting a billboard per se, but any sign anywhere in town that's larger than that, unless they come to the council. And using your example of FedEx or Olive Garden or whatever, we look at it and they show us some elevations and they show us a picture from down the road on what that would look like, and we go, yeah, that's not objectionable, or that fits that parcel. Then we can make that decision. And if that becomes way too onerous, like I said, then we can start adding stuff to give the code enforcement director some hard cutoffs, so to speak. But I personally fear that anything, when we start lining it all out, they're gonna find a way to work around it. They've all but warned us of it, in my opinion. This is a good problem to have. It doesn't seem like it, but Marion's being sought out for this for a reason, and it's because of our daytime traffic. It's that simple. It's an economic argument, and I don't blame them, and in some ways I'm grateful for it, but you just don't see in the towns that we would benchmark and the things that we're trying to do to preserve the landscape and the aesthetics of the town, you don't see this going on in other places. They've got some restrictions. So, anything else other than that change that anybody has a big problem with? Are you guys comfortable with this, with that change for now?
I think that looks good.
Doug?
The only other question that I had, and I just wanna make sure that I've got this right. So if I'm that business that buys a lot on South Court Street, whatever, I can put a sign up that advertises my business that is 200 square feet or less, but where does the height restriction come into play?
That is,
So that would be an E on the next page. So 30, you would be restricted to 30 feet. And if you're on Court Street.
Okay, all right, so we have that covered. My big thing is proportion. It's like John said, the sign has to be proportional to the surroundings, not only the lot it sits on and the buildings that are around it, but everything else too. It can't look like a big sore thumb sticking up there, and I think that's where the discretion is gonna come into play by limiting what we've done here. I think what we've done is a step in the right direction.
I agree, but you have to find a way to put that into words that does not end up becoming discriminatory in some way.
I agree, 100%, but I think the appeal process, hopefully, will serve its purpose in that someone wants to say, you know, I really could use a bigger sign. Can I not appeal this? And
Yes, you can.
you can.
Absolutely.
That's our process.
Right.
But
In the
here's the,
meantime, we're trying to prevent
that's right,
somebody from going up and down the street and renting a
exactly,
10 by 10 area and putting up a
exactly,
huge sign right next to you,
right.
you know?
I think it's a step in the right direction. I think we've, I hate to say it, but I'm not gonna say it. I think it's a very good place to start.
I suspect this will be changed many times by this council, maybe future councils moving forward as things arise, but
Is there anything in there about blocking the obstruction of a side street? When you put a sign on a lot next to approaching street to say Route 37?
Well,
You
and that,
go up there, you can't see, you got a big sign out there.
right, and that's,
Yes, in number H, it does say no sign shall be constructed that obstructs the visual clearance needed for safe vehicular and pedestrian traffic.
Okay, for the side street traffic.
For
anyway,
any traffic.
anywhere.
Yeah.
So it gives the code enforcement director the discretion to approve or deny one based on his interpretation of that issue anywhere in town.
That's key.
the only other thing that I would
You already said
consider.
your only other thing.
Did I? Okay, the second other thing that I might consider is, should we or can we specify the overhang of the sign? In other words, if we've got a city street that has let's call it a 10-foot right-of-way limit on it, I don't want that sign to encroach over our right-of-way in a vertical plane. In other words, it's gotta be on the back side of that. Because sometimes that comes into play, especially on highways, and maybe, or maybe not so much on highways, but more city streets, to make sure that the overhang does not encroach on the right-of-way. You know, right now, we don't say anything about it, they could take that pole and set it right up against the property line or right-of-way line, and then they got another 10 feet overhanging. We don't want that either. We wanna make sure that that whole thing is behind.
We can,
Whatever line.
the way this is currently written, signs are not prohibited in the right of way. So we can have the overhang, but it may not make much sense to include prohibiting the overhang if we're not gonna prohibit.
Now, say that again, the first thing you said?
The way
Right.
this is currently written,
Yeah.
signs are not prohibited in the right of way.
I guess
Now,
my
I-
question is, should we though? From now going forward?
Probably
individual could-
permanent signs, potentially, temporary signs, I don't think temporary signs have been an issue.
No,
I mean, you often see political signs, yard sale signs, all kinds of, for sale signs, things like that, I don't think those have been an
hate for
issue.
that one person to go, you know what, I'm gonna push this as far as I can, and I'm gonna stick it out here as far as I can, and here's where I'm gonna put it, making us say, no, you need to move your sign.
Well, you gotta remember, when they apply through the permit process, they have to include structural drawings and all of the permit plans, so the code enforcement office is going to see exactly where they plan to place this sign.
Okay,
And if they feel that it's a permanent
Fair.
type of sign that will obstruct
that's fair.
the right of way,
Yeah.
chances
As long
are
as
it's
they
not gonna be
use their-
approved.
Yeah, as long as they use
Yeah.
their best judgment as far as, sight distance, like Glenn said, plus overhang, all that kinda stuff, yeah, I'm all right with that, yeah. We don't
I mean,
wanna get too picky, or
Right.
too specific, but, yeah, okay.
Or we could add an I. We could add item I and say something about that, right?
We could, yeah, I mean, we can always
Yeah,
add.
because at 30 feet high, it may not be obstructing the view, but it still probably wouldn't hurt to have one line just saying no portion of the sign can extend past the vertical line of the property line or the
Right.
easement, right of way,
The
or however
airspace.
you wanna,
Can't use the airspace.
that's a good.
No
point.
permanent sign shall be allowed.
No portion of the sign.
On the airspace, right away airspace.
Say again? Got 2 ears, I shouldn't hear both.
You don't want it to cross over the airspace of a right of way.
probably 50 foot high and something high.
Well, any height, 100 foot, doesn't matter, as long if it sticks over.
We're well on our way to a 38-page
I know.
ordinance.
Goes right up.
Let's tackle this one. No permanent sign shall be,
Shall extend past
Shall extend past.
vertical a vertical line, property.
The 35th parallel.
Yeah.
okay, come on.
Sorry.
No permanent sign shall extend past, help me out, Wendy.
Property line.
Vertical property line?
Whose property line, their property line or someone else?
Well,
Street right away line.
I would suggest street right of way
Right of way,
line,
whatever that's
because
called.
there are some descriptions that go to the center line of the road.
And when we say extend past, are we talking about the overhang of the sign?
Yeah.
Should we say that?
No portion.
I
of
would
the
say
sign.
no permanent sign overhang shall extend past the property line.
Okay, no,
Street right away line.
Street right of way line, I think would be better here.
Street right away line.
Yeah.
somebody say that again. No permanent, say what you said again. No permanent
No,
sign.
no permanent sign. What did I say? No
Should
permanent
it be
sign.
no portion of the permanent sign?
Probably.
That's what we need to do.
Shall extend past
First sign is real high.
the,
No portion of a permanent sign shall extend past the city right-of-way line.
city road right of way line.
City
Street.
road.
I thought they said street right of way line.
Yeah,
Said
that's
street.
fine. Street.
City street right of way line.
Now, is there a height restriction on that?
30
30 feet.
feet. Unless they're on New Route 13 between 37 and 148.
City street. Right of way, or do we say line?
Right of way
Would we
line.
want any sign to extend that, no matter the height, let's forget about height. Would we want any sign to overhang? I mean, it wouldn't matter if it's 100 feet up.
This, the way it's currently, the way the mayor has written it, it would apply to all signs
Yeah.
everywhere.
Don't pin this on me. This is what I did right. So this is item I, under paragraph 5. No portion of a permanent sign shall extend past city street right-of-way line, period.
That's what you said.
Does that cover everything, everybody's concerns?
Sign versus billboard, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, no
Yeah.
permanent, portion of a permanent sign. So that would include a brand sign, logo sign, like you called it,
Okay.
or anything else.
I just didn't know in our definitions that
But there
billboard.
again, if somebody is gonna build it, they may wanna build it
Even then,
much higher than what this allows and over, I mean, there are examples of this, I think, I'm thinking of one specifically that's a huge sign out near the interstate that overhangs our right-of-way line. Doesn't make a hill of beans of difference being under it because it's 100 feet in the air. And that's a circumstance that maybe we could weigh on an appeal process if somebody were to do that.
The First Methodist Church sign extends out over the sidewalk. Been that way for 50 years.
which sign was that?
First Methodist Church sign extends out over the sidewalk.
Their grandfather. Unless we move the church.
Okay. What else?
I think I'm ready to make a motion to,
Tammy, I'm gonna give you my copy of this with my written notes on it. As we discussed, there's 2 changes. If you make a motion, Doug, on this, I want you to note 5D as noted, and 5, the addition of 5I. And I'll give my copy. And for clarification, again, 5D, any sign larger than 300 square feet on a property is used for commercial and industrial purposes, there's the addition, along the major road, comma, or larger than 200 square feet elsewhere. And in the addition of I, no portion of a permanent sign shall extend past city right-of-way line. So, just make it with that.
I I will make a motion to approve ordinance 3842, amending the Marion City Code regarding signage, with including the, section 5D as noted, and the addition of 5I.
I would second that.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton?
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick?
Yay?
Commissioner Webb?
Yay.
Commissioner Steckland?
Yay.
Mayor Absher?
Yay. Commissioner Barwick? Item 5.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase of extrication equipment to outfit engines 3 and 4 and a thermal imaging camera for the new ladder truck. And these items are in the budget.
Second that motion.
You want to come discuss this since you sat through our sign ordinance discussion? No?
Only if you want me to. If there's any questions, I'll be more than happy.
Don't have any
If
questions?
anybody has any questions, most certainly.
I have a question. Do we know when the new truck's gonna get here? Do we know that yet?
Actually, I got a phone call day before yesterday, and they're anticipating possibly mid-December. At least to get it back
This
this
May?
year to Illinois.
Tell me which year.
hopefully. Yeah, hopefully before the
This
new year, this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's looking good.
Good.
I would like to add one thing. Chief and I were talking and I found out this extrication equipment, we did not have this on all of our trucks. In fact, a few weeks back, one of the trucks that had this on it was out. The other truck gets a call. We've been getting, whenever I read the stats for next month, you're gonna see the numbers of our calls that went way up. And we needed the extrication equipment on the other call, and we had to go get the equipment from one of the other trucks. You look at that and you think, well, it doesn't take that long. If you're the one trapped in a vehicle or needing to be extricated, minutes are hours. So this will allow us to fit our 2 other trucks with this equipment, along with the thermal imaging. So.
A first and a second, right?
Yes.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton?
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick?
Yay?
Commissioner Webb?
Yay.
Commissioner Steckland?
Yay.
Mayor Absher?
Yay. Thank you, Kim.
Yes, sir.
Item 6A, we have a petition from David Lawrence to annex part of a piece of property that he owns, which is out off of Norman Road, right? Norman and Feetsum, pardon me?
Feetsum Road.
That's my motion to approve ordinance 3852, approving a petition of annexation from David L. Lawrence for part of PIN 0709300001.
I would second that.
Any questions on this?
Where does our, line go now?
Say that again?
Where does-
North of Feetsum is not in the city.
North of Feetsum is not?
None of the best property was ever brought into the city. Lawrence brought the best property, and he's bringing in that 200 or 300 piece just on Feetsum Road.
So our line, corporate line would be,
You mean the city limits line?
yeah,
It
would it-
goes down Feetsum Road.
on the south side?
And it takes in some of the Jackson property.
It's in Oakshire.
We had to do that,
Okay.
we didn't have the Oakshire subdivision.
Alright,
So we went down hard, just to some frontage off of the Jackson property. Feetsum, using Feetsum Road as a turn up the vehicle to get there. And then we annexed the Oakshire subdivision, this is 4 East, right now we take in a little bit of the property east of Oakshire, we got a piece out in there, and that's the end of our city limits.
so this piece will not conflict with, this piece will be contiguous with the other
It has
pieces.
to be able to be
Yes.
annexed in, yes.
And Oakshire is,
But that's not, this piece is not contiguous to Oakshire.
correct, But it's a-
East side of Oakshire, we're west of Oakshire.
right, right. It's a chunk out of the 80 that's there,
We're getting it because of Feetsum Road, being up in the corporate limit.
yeah.
Okay. You good, Doug? First and second on that? Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton,
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick,
Yay.
Commissioner Webb.
Yay.
Commissioner Steckler,
Yay.
Mayor Absher.
Yay. All right, 7A and B are interrelated. Cody's got some information to discuss on this. This is Dr. Craig Smith that has got the pet wellness, is that right?
Yeah.
Pet wellness center out there, and he's got this subdivision, or got this plot of land that he wants to plat as a subdivision. But then you got a call today.
Yes,
Explain
yesterday, actually. So the first item is the change in zoning. All that was currently rural ag, and he's requesting a zoning change on that to C1 commercial. And he's also putting covenants in place, and I did not include the minutes in your packet from the zoning board. There was no members from the community other than himself here on that, and it passed the zoning board unanimously. So just so you have that for reference, and I can share those minutes with you, I apologize. So there was an item on your desk when you got here. That's the second item. If you look at the map, what he originally submitted that was in your packet was just the 6 lots, the subdivision for the 6 lots. The call yesterday that I received and the new plat that we got today includes outlots A and outlots B as well, so he wanted to include those in. I will note though, if he wants to get those rezoned, outlots A and B, he'll have to reapply for rezoning for those 2 lots because that was not in his original rezoning request. So you're approving the zoning board's recommendation to rezone the 6 lots to C1, and then the second item that you're voting on would be to accept the subdivision, including outlots A and B, which was not originally included in your packet, but as I explained, you received there today. And I believe he has covenants in place, and not that that has any bearing on what you guys do, but he does have covenants in place for those subdivision lots as well. And he did note in the zoning board minutes that he didn't expect any of the potential users to create much additional traffic in that area. I would think they might be more industrial in nature, and his business probably would be continue to be the traffic driver out there.
That street, the new street,
It's Boulder Drive, yeah.
that's not been constructed yet, right?
It has,
Oh, it has.
that's what leads back to that wellness. It has not, until you vote on this tonight, that has not been dedicated to the city yet. That's part of this subdivision as well.
So Boulder Drive as shown here is the road that goes back to the facility?
Correct,
Okay,
yeah, his current facility.
that makes a little better sense.
Yeah.
That's a concrete street too. by the way.
Correct, yeah.
So this PIN number in this ordinance, is that just the 6 lots, or is that this whole piece? And if it's this whole piece, shouldn't we be authorizing zoning change to parts of that PIN number? Namely lots 1 through 6?
Well, they have not been assigned PIN numbers yet, so potentially, yes, that might be the best way to word that. So we might need to amend that ordinance to do so.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this PIN number the entire thing?
Yeah, well, I think it's
Yeah.
2. I think it's 2 technically. If you look to the east of the 6 lots, you've got a pin ending in 033. And then if you look to the east of Boulder Drive, you have a pin ending in 031. So I think it would technically be pieces of both 031 and 033. There's
Did
2
you say
different
033 was on west of Boulder?
east,
East. And what's west? What's out?
031.
Outlot A is 031.
So what's the 033 then? If A is
East of Boulder.
everything east?
Yeah,
The 6
correct.
lots and outlot B?
Until the county receives this, they will not assign the 6 lots pin numbers.
Right,
So they have no pins at this point,
right.
other than 033.
which is everything, including the 6 lots as platted and Outlot B.
Correct.
So the zoning application that's included in the packet just has the one PIN number.
Yeah,
So that was an error,
it must have been,
Okay. because I'm sure that's where I got that from, for the
well,
ordinance.
honestly, I guess no, because it's only it's only rezoning the 6 lots, which are part of 033.
Okay,
Yeah, that's right.
So to that point, maybe all of 033 has been rezoned. You wanna look at it that way. So it could potentially be the 6 lots and Outlot B, since they didn't apply for a part of
So that,
033.
okay, so if we do this as applied and as approved, we would be including Outlot B as C1.
Correct.
They are gonna have to come back and a petition for Outlot A then, that's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Outlot A has a big pond on it, right?
Yeah, it's the detention pond
It's a
for,
large pond.
Well, then we not
The
wanna
development.
rezone that anyway.
yeah, I
It
don't,
doesn't take, it takes up at least 2 lots of there, maybe.
yeah, does it extend all the way to Meadowland?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty
Just
close.
about.
So it, yeah.
Okay, well, maybe
That
that's,
won't go anywhere.
okay, so we don't need any change to this wording then.
Correct.
so the ordinance is good,
I think so.
okay.
Okay,
We've
Oh.
got it. We worked through that.
yeah, well, at least we understand it. I'll move to approve ordinance 3850, authorizing a zoning change to PIN 0617200033 from rural agricultural to C1 general commercial by CCS Real Estate Holdings LLC.
Second.
Any questions or further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton,
Yeah.
Commissioner Barwick,
Yay.
Commissioner Webb,
Yay.
Commissioner Stecklin,
Yeah.
Mayor Absher.
Yay. Other associated item and related, 7B, be my motion to approve ordinance 3851, accepting a subdivision platted as the Woodlands Phase 2 subdivision that we just rezoned.
Second that too.
Further discussion?
Yeah, question on the street itself. You're saying it's already constructed, but should there be a certification that it's been inspected by an engineer or
It
street
has.
superintendent or somebody? before-
It has, it was built to our spec.
What's that?
It was built to our specifications.
There's proof of that somehow, I guess.
Yeah,
The question Jim's asking though, we had specs, but did we have somebody out there inspecting that to see that it was built that way?
I do know, the street superintendent has signed off on this plat, so, knowing that that dedication was a part of that.
So he has, that's my question.
Who signed up on it?
Street superintendent.
Doug.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you know, that may be a discussion for later, but that's something we really need to consider as far as inspecting. You know, we require, hey, we want you to build it like this. Yeah, sure. Well, if we don't have anybody out there inspecting.
Well, we did make some moves in the right direction by at least having Brent sign off on stuff and Doug signing off on these things. Now, is that an engineering inspection? No, it's not. I think that may be what you're talking about. But
They
Because-
sign off on the plan,
Yeah,
but is there a sign off for accepting it when it's built?
if we don't,
Now there is, yes.
if we don't have
I thought we
boots
had
on the ground, eyes looking at it, to say that that's supposed to be an 8-inch concrete street or 9-inch concrete street, and we look at the forms and somebody's out there measuring it and watching them pour it, I'm good with that. But if we say, oh yeah, we built it like that,
The former is our process.
the what?
The latter, I'm sorry, is our process.
But who does that
Depending
inspection?
on what it is, if it's a sewer line, Brent's out there, if it's a street, Doug's out there, that is the process at
Okay.
this point.
Alright, I don't think that's the way it used to be.
You're correct.
Right. We talked about this at that subdivisions, you
Exactly,
know, where they were using
Yeah.
5-gallon buckets as their
yeah.
things, because nobody was checking it.
Well, you always go back and core drill it, but,
This is what we had to do in Dewdrop.
yeah,
We got in a mess there.
yeah. So, okay, we're good.
We've recently changed that process, so.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton.
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick.
Yay.
Commissioner Webb.
Yay.
Commissioner Steckland.
Yay.
Mayor Absher.
Yay. Item 8, Commissioner reports. Mr. Webb, you want to go first?
Yeah, street department, we're running the leaf back all over town, ahead of this rain coming in tomorrow night, so, trying to get the ditches cleaned out where they'll flow good. Working on a lot of the alleys on the base rock, trying to make sure everything's good in shape for the winter coming up. Of course, we're putting the snow plows on, some salt spreaders on the trucks. Patching a lot of potholes, and we finished cleaning that big ditch down, off Boynton Street last Wednesday, so things are looking good there. Cemetery, nothing to report, all's good at the cemetery, that's all I have.
Commissioner Steckland.
Since last meeting, the water department had 2 new service taps, 5 water main breaks, 2 services updated, 5 meter pits were repaired. I want to give a lot of kudos to everybody that was involved in the very merry lighted Christmas parade last night. For those of you that were out there, it was a huge success. The weather at the last minute turned in our favor, so it ended up being a great night for that. From what I can see from my vantage point, it looked like everybody had a great time. And photos that I've seen shared on social media today, my gosh, the square looks right out of a movie, you know, especially I saw one with the carriage with Santa in it, with the tower in the back. That needs to be somewhere very prominent for us, because that's really a nice calling card for the city. So kudos to everybody who was working on that. It's trivia night, so I do have one trivia question, one only. Where is the tallest water tower in the world located, and how tall is it? I will accept this answer in feet. You don't have to get into inches, but feet is fine.
Dubai in 1200.
Freestanding water tower, or can it be on another building?
Freestanding.
Freestanding.
Freestanding?
Freestanding.
So it's only a water tower.
Only a water tower. That's it.
250 feet, that's a guess.
Well, you're closer than Doug.
Everything's bigger there.
The answer is in Edmond, Oklahoma, and it's 218 feet tall. And just as a little more trivia fact, Chicago Bridge and Iron built that tank in 1986, and it is a 500,000-gallon tank such as ours. The same company is building our water tower here, which stands 168 feet tall. So it's 50 foot higher than ours.
Here's why you can't go more than that. 1 foot of height equals, 0.43 pounds of PSI. So if you get 220 feet, that's 86 pounds of pressure. You get much more than that, you're gonna be blowing lines out of the ground. So that's gonna limit your height. And I thought 250 gets you at 100.
He just messed up the trivia.
I forgot.
No, I like when I have a color man say.
That was gonna be the next trivia.
Yeah, next trivia, we need to
The
do a
next trivia.
calculation.
Yeah,
Good point, Lee.
Thank you, Glenn.
that was good.
That's all I got. Nothing else.
Mr. Barwick?
I don't have anything. I do have a question for Commissioner Steckland. Has the water been added to the new tower yet?
No, we are at a little standstill right now till spring, because we couldn't finish painting that because it got below a certain, the paint needs a certain temp to cure.
40 degrees.
How much?
It's gotta be above 40 to put your paint on.
There you go. So when we started dipping below that, they couldn't continue the paint job, so they rather than try and every morning get up and go, oh yeah, we can get it, but it's gotta dry.
Has the inside been painted yet?
Parts of it. Yeah, that's why we just said, we're gonna hold it till probably late February, early March, sometime in there. But other than that, it's ready to go.
I don't have anything.
Doug?
I don't have anything from the treasurer's office, thank you.
Okay, item 9, anything else to come before the council? Under miscellaneous? Okay, I do have a need, hopefully for a short closed session, to discuss a property matter and a personnel matter. And that's my motion to enter executive session to discuss property and personnel.
Second that motion.
Okay, for one person we have visiting, we won't be making any decisions or actions after we come back, just to close out the meeting. If anybody else is left, you're welcome to stay, but that's what's going on. And roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton.
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick.
Yay.
Commissioner Webb.
Yay.
Commissioner Steckland.
Yay.
Mayor Absher.
Yay. Okay, you guys are feeling